Ahoy! After recently having replied to some of the bugs and issues that I see in Smite at the moment, HiRez has now issued another public statement about server issues and the actions they're taking regarding that. I'm very happy that they're doing that. I'm very glad that they're being more transparent about these issues once again, and we are going to go through the statement that Isaiah posted. Hey everyone! Season 8 continues to be an incredibly exciting time for us, and we're still in the midst of diagnosing, investigating and implementing fixes for various server and stability issues that have been affecting players for the past few weeks. We have made some improvements and taken strides towards long-term solutions, and wanted to take some time to update you all on what we've done while providing some more insight into the more recent issues. If you haven't had the chance to read our initial developer update on Season 8 issues and actions from Ajax, you can check it out here. It provides some great context and nice vocabulary section that will help with understanding this new post. That one we've already talked about in the past, that addressed various concerns that they had at the start of the season with the server issues, and this is basically a continuation of that. Order of events. 8.2. Goddess of the Salt Sea Preparation and Launch Week 1. After the instability of 8.1 and ongoing concerns around match manager crashes, we organized a group of people dedicated to specifically rewriting the code of our match manager. As the team made progress, we planned for most of the changes to go live with the 8.3 update, but a small handful of them were deemed safe enough to be included in 8.2. Those few changes performed well enough at low player numbers during our PTS testing phase, but ran into issues at larger scale. As soon as we received reports of the issues in live with the 8.2 launch, we did the work to roll back these new changes and resumed the use of the 8.1 version of our core services. These services are comprised of backend systems that handle player experience in-game across many areas, account management, inventory, matchmaking, chat, etc. They stayed there for the rest of the week. 8.2 Goddess of the Salt Sea Week 2. We rolled out new updates to our core services that had more changes and improvements. After a little bit of expected downtime, we found that things were going pretty well. We also used this week to experiment a bit more with some of the back-end configuration that should have better capabilities to deal with backlog problems that arise at higher CCU values. Those changes were promising and seemed to perform well despite the issues that came up at the start of week 3. At this point, it's worth mentioning that is probably the explanation why we saw so many server resets in the past weeks where servers would go down relatively frequently, especially if you play at off times, you would have seen a lot of those. Also during week 2, we had an issue at one of our data centers that was outside of our control, requiring us to migrate all of the instance servers hosted there, where matches are played, to another physical location. An issue during the migration process caused a lot of instances to be dropped, resulting in players being kicked from games and match lobbies, but was resolved relatively quickly. Monday before the 8.2 Goddess of the Salt Sea bonus update, so week 3. Monday evening before the bonus update launch, we encountered another data center issue, again outside of our control. This issue affected players and instances in a similar way to the issue in week 2, and we went through the process of migrating servers again. 8.2 Goddess of the Salt Sea bonus update launch. I want to preface this next section with a little more info on the process for building an update for release, as that context will help when explaining the next set of issues and actions. Here's a quick rundown on the types of game builds Smite uses and how they work. Our building process generates a few different outputs that are bundled and shipped as the final game. That process generates the executable binaries. These are runnable programs and libraries used. The cooked data, which is a process of taking the assets in the game and bundling them so they load more quickly while the game is running. And the configuration data, which can include things like balance changes. For example, damage numbers changing from 100 to 75 or something. On a game as big and old as Smite, there are a lot of things to do to generate these outputs, and the build can take hours to complete, so we have a few different versions that allow us to specify what elements we want to change to save time. Full builds. These builds compile the code, generate the configuration data, and cook the game assets, and they take a long time to run. Native builds. These builds compile the code and reuse assets and configuration from previously generated builds. Assembly builds. These builds just regenerate the configuration data while reusing the executable binaries and cooked assets from an earlier build. We typically use full builds that are run overnight to balance safety and time constraints. Now that you have some understanding of the build types, here's a breakdown of the 8.2 bonus update issues and some actions. We released the bonus update to find that we reintroduced a crash that had been fixed in an earlier build. For this release, we did run a full build, but when it came time to deploy it, we found that the output for the Linux server version of the build had not been produced. To save time, we ran an assembly build which used the executable binaries from an even older version of the binaries that had the crash in it. We did not find that crash when reviewing the mid-balance changes during testing, but it was there when we went live. When we realized what happened, we ran a full build and rolled out a hotfix as fast as we could. Going forward. When it comes to more long-term improvements, we're making changes to our internal processes to make it to where fixes and updates don't have to be made on our biggest release days when we push out a new update for players to download. Historically, we've released client, game server, and backend service updates all on the same day. We'll now be looking to regularly make backend service updates during isolated times and non-peak hours. RIP everyone who plays during those hours, including OCE players, but oh well. Our ops, tech, and community teams will be working together on more clear messaging plans for when we push updates out of our core services. We are also working on building the ability to utilize more cloud servers to mitigate downtimes in scenarios when our data centers are having issues that are out of our control. We've actually used cloud servers for some regions in the past, but players on those servers experienced a lot of hitching and rubber banding in matches. I am guessing, by the way, that that means that maybe the OCE servers were actually on cloud servers in the past. We're further investigating those issues so we can feel confident in adding that option back into our toolbox. Migrating bare metal servers or spinning up new ones in data centers takes a lot more time than spinning up cloud servers across multiple sites. When or if we implement those cloud servers, they would primarily be used as an emergency option and not the primary utilized host for matches. Our ops team is also exploring options with other server providers. This is very interesting, by the way. Migrating servers is not an easy thing from what I've learned, and having a backup cloud option sounds interesting. I mean, it's still better to be able to play at times where the servers would otherwise be down and have some rubber banding occasionally, and then most of the time you will have those normal servers and stable performance. So I think that's an interesting idea, and I hope they explore that further. Lastly, in an effort to streamline reporting services for server issues, we've created a new public forum for players whenever they encounter issues. Going forward, if you experience any server-related issues while playing, please visit smitegame.com/report-server-issues and fill out the form with as much information as possible. Responses will go straight to our ops team for investigation. We hope that with your reports we'll be able to identify downward trends in performance more quickly, allowing us to diagnose and resolve issues faster. With this plan, we aim to get Smite server stability to the best place it's ever been, and the team is dedicated to bringing you the best Smite experience possible. To be 100% transparent, we still expect some level of instability around these changes as we work towards a permanent solution, but we're trying to be smarter around how and when we roll out updates. We'll still be testing code updates and fixes extensively during testing, but there's nothing quite like a live environment. There may be some growing pains, but with each issue we get more information that brings us closer to resolution. If and when issues do arise, we'll investigate and work to resolve them as quickly as possible. Thank you so much for sticking with us as we continue to improve. We'll do our best to update you all as we make progress. And that's the entirety of the post. I think that sounds promising. I think that sounds like we're going to have some struggles to deal with for a while. I feel like this is something, like, until that's completely done, I would imagine at least half a year or so where we would have some instabilities in between. But if that means that in the long run the game is more stable and there are less issues, then I personally am willing to take that hit, because it's not like it's necessarily more stable right now anyways. And again, I really like that HiRez is more transparent about these types of things as well now, because otherwise we always just have to wonder what's going on when the servers are not working well. With that, thank you so much for watching. If you're new to the channel, feel free to sub button and maybe the bell. And other than that, I hope to see you for the next one soon. SLOTH out.